I want to stand against the enemy's schemes.
I want to know him more.
I want to know his word.
I want to stand firm.
I want to stand firm.
We must stand firm.
My brethren, be strong in the Most High, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yah, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand and withstand in the evil day. And having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, take the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High Yah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1,
0. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to another Sword of the Spirit audio biblical teaching broadcast. And we are your hosts, the servants of Yah. And we'd like to thank all of our listeners who have made the decision to fellowship with us on this set-apart day of our Father Yah and His Son Yahushua. And we do not take for granted that you could have been somewhere else today, but you have chosen to once again fellowship with us. So with that being said, Shabbat Shalom to all of our listeners. We welcome you. I'm going to bring in my co-host, Prina. Shabbat Shalom, sis.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to get right in today's show because we have a great show planned for you today. But before we get started with today's show, I want to kind of plug in a couple of things. Our Biblical Teaching Conference is going to be held on Saturday, August 15, 2015, here in the Michigan area. From 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time for those of you who may be listening out of state. And it's called Defending the Faith. We will be having workshops and trainings throughout that day where participants will be able to get training on how to defend the faith of our Father Yah, where those who do not believe it will not be able to stand or contend against it. And it's entirely free. We'll be serving breakfast as well as lunch. All you need is your presence. So if you are in the Michigan area, we will be sending those flyers out this weekend. And it's for those who are not, and we've had some interest from out-of-staters who have expressed an interest in joining us. So if you are interested, again, just send us an email at servants, with the S, servantsofyah@yahoo.com, and we'll send you the information. So before we get started, Prina, I wanted to kind of, I was led by the Most High, just as far as next week's show. I've been really grieved as of lately, as I know you have, with the condition of our people, the so-called African Americans. And I have been led next week to have a national, just a day of prayer.
Okay.
For our people. Next week's show is going to be entitled The Real Reality of the So-Called African American. We're going to be breaking down every facet and condition of our people, from television, the entertainment that our people are not only partaking in, but actually being a part of the church, and the condition that the church is, going in. We want to take the blindness off. I'm sick of the foolishness that I'm seeing. The ignorant is not bliss. The agendas that are being pushed, from sports to music to television, we're going to be breaking it all down. And I am pleading to everyone who's listening and those who will be listening to this show after it's recorded hereafter, to spread this next Sabbath for us to all be in prayer for our brethren, those who are not in truth, our family members, our friends, those that we don't know, those that are his, because we are the watchmen, and we're supposed to warn our brethren. And if you see the sword coming, and trust me, it's coming in every direction, we're supposed to warn them, because many of our brothers, they are blind. They don't see the sword coming. But if we see it, we're supposed to warn them. So I'm praying for next week, or next Shabbat, that we will all be in agreement. Those that are in truth, who are awakened to the truth of who we are, praying and crying out to the Most High, crying aloud for our people, praying that the true sons of Jacob, the so-called African American, and those who are from the northern tribes that are lost as well, that we would all come into the knowledge of who we are and return back to our Father and wake up, because there's a lot of stuff. We are in Jacob's trouble, and I'm going into our panel discussion, but I'm just really grieved with the things that I'm seeing. Many of our brethren don't know what's going on. They don't know why the things that are happening, why Satan has turned up in regards to us, why a lot of the things that were going on back in the 60s and what we used to watch movies about, during Black History Month when we were kids, we don't know why a lot of these things are happening again. So I'm crying out, and for all our listeners and everyone, to spread this word, for us all to be in prayer and have a national set time throughout the Sabbath, that we all be in prayer to our Father Yah and for our brethren, that they will wake up. And so we're going to be breaking down and analyzing every agenda that is being pushed from every facet and the condition from the church, from one end of the spectrum to the other. And so I just wanted to plug those two things in before I get started. Today's mini lesson is entitled The Practice of Multiplying Wives, Right or Wrong. Is it right or is it wrong? We're going to be talking about that today. That has been a hot topic for many years among the Hebrew Israelite community. And today we're going to go to Scripture and allow Scripture to tell us the truth of that. And for the State of the Body panel discussion, we're going to discuss the Texas pool party chaos, and we're going to make the connection as to why this situation is real, as well as the numerous recent events alike. We're going to show the connection to biblical prophecies of Jacob's trouble. So with that being said, before we get started with that, now I'm going to go ahead. I have two audio clips that we're going to listen to.
Okay.
The first one, for those who may not be aware of what happened in Texas, we're going to play a short clip. And then the second clip that I'm going to play after that is going to be from a former, I think the county is McKinney County. I think he's a former officer who is going to break down and analyze what he saw. And this is from a Caucasian former officer who's going to tell you his take, and you might be pretty surprised as far as what he's going to say. So we're going to go ahead and listen to those clips, and then we will be right back.
It is the video that is haunting so many. A 15-year-old McKinney girl begging for her mother, thrown to the ground by a police officer, her face buried in the dirt.
And he was just aggressive for no reason at all. It was horrible.
Along with her sister and mother, Tatiana Rhodes organized and threw the party Friday where this whole thing happened. She says it started with a woman who picked a fight with her, and the cops were called. But Rhodes says when the cops showed up, kids got scared and started running.
Everything could have been solved entirely way better than what it was. I mean, there were other officers that were actually nice to people.
Whoa, sir, get on the ground. Hold up, sir. I told you to stay. Get on the ground.
What happened next was all caught on camera by a 15-year-old boy. The officer cursing kids out, and eventually, as things escalate, he pulls a gun. And then the incident with the girl that has landed him on administrative leave.
Watching 30 seconds or 7 minutes of a clip, it doesn't tell the whole story.
But Sean Toon, who says he was one of the people who called police Friday and saw the whole thing, says he's behind the officer and his actions. He brought this sign to the pool Sunday to prove it.
I think he did what he thought he had to do to control the situation.
It was horrific for me.
You can see Ariana Rhodes in the video, too, trying to help her friend as she pleads for her mom. She says it was that plea that seemed to set the officer off. The 15-year-old, like so many others, can't get that video now out of her mind.
She has the freedom to speak, and what she did was nothing wrong, and the officer was just out of control.
Here's what we know right now. One McKinney police officer is on administrative leave after 12 officers responded to a disturbance at a pool party Friday night. The department has launched an internal investigation now, and outrage is growing.
All right, joining me now is former McKinney police officer, longtime reserve deputy, and criminal defense attorney Pete Schulte. Pete, thanks for coming by. Let's go ahead and get straight to the video. All right, so Pete, this party described as a group of about 70 people. Before police even get there, this fight breaks out between two women captured on cell phone video. They're separated, but things escalating on their own. And we don't know exactly how this call went into police, but we do know that they're told that there are some kids who are there and they aren't supposed to be there. How do officers approach situations like this?
You know, officers respond to loud party calls all the time. I mean, if there's no indication that there's any weapons or anybody's been hurt or seriously injured, what they're going to do is they're going to show up and kind of gather the situation, what's happening at the scene. They're not going to generally run towards people or order them to the ground or do certain things, but they're going to try to get a kind of a mindset of what's happening.
And we don't know if they had any indication that these were children or teens.
Right. I mean, I think the call notes just came out that, you know, this is still light. It's not nighttime, that there are people at a community pool that shouldn't be there, so they want the police to show up to either issue criminal trespass warnings and get them to leave.
Okay. So now the second piece of video. video where Officer Case Bolt literally runs full speed. We see him even somersault into frame. But the first officer that we see is interacting with the teens. He is calm. He is courteous. He's professional. You can't really hear him there, but he's talking to them just very calmly, matter-of-factly. Then the camera pans over, and that's when we see Case Bolt again. Now he is using profanity, telling everyone to get down. Really a huge difference in how these officers are behaving. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'll tell you, Natalie, what really bothered me about this particular situation is you do have one officer who has individuals that he's questioning and talking to, and then you have Corporal Case Bolt that comes around, and he is very aggressive. He starts using profanity, and officers are trained. You never use curse words or use profanity because it only escalates the situation. You have to stay more professional than the people you're potentially dealing with, and I didn't see that here. I saw several officers that were minding, their business and doing what they're supposed to do, and one officer who happened, I guess, to be identified as Corporal Case Bolt, who was acting very aggressive and doing things that I don't think were appropriate.
Okay, and the other thing that I think jumps out about all of this is that Case Bolt, as he's trying to get them to disperse, the other officers are kind of just hanging back.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is if you notice the yellow stripes on his shoulder pads, on his uniform, that means he's a supervisor, so he is their boss. And so that would be the equivalent of a regular employee challenging their boss in the middle of a work situation. So that's why I believe you don't have other officers that are trying to challenge Corporal Case Bolt because it's their boss.
Right, and they're looking to him for direction.
They are looking
how they are going to respond to this group.
Right, they're looking for him for leadership. They're looking for him for, trying to figure out how we're going to handle this. And if you notice, none of the other officers start reacting the same way as the corporal did.
Very big difference. All right, and now the third piece of video, I think this is very, very telling. Does appear as if that this group of women that he's telling to leave, that they finally do turn around and start to walk off. But that's when he takes off after the girl with the long hair, and that's Dejaria Becton. And she is in a bikini. She's holding a towel. She is clearly unarmed. Hard to tell, but sounds like she is yelling back at him as she's walking away. Is that any reason for him to go after her like that?
I'll tell you, officers, we have this saying that we can't be offended because we're officers of the law. We're not individuals. I don't care what she was yelling at that officer. I mean, anything would not have said what he did and would have justified throwing her to the ground and pushing her down and throwing her face into the concrete like he did. I mean, police officers are human, Natalie. Emotions can sometimes get the best of them, but in this particular case, I think the emotions went a little crazy.
And he pulls the gun, and we have a couple more quick points to make, but there he is right now, pulling the gun out of the holster.
Which, there's no reason for that. I mean, I think the officer, Case Bolt, perceived that he was being threatened by people, and that usually is a common tactic, is to pull a weapon if you feel like you're being threatened, but in this particular case, you see the other officers come up behind and actually kind of push the gun away. I think that's indicative of saying that this was probably a little too much, and he was, again, these were his emotions that I think that just got too high, and that's why he's reacting the way he did.
Okay, and last, I've got to be quick here. The group, African American, we see the officers are white. How big of a factor is race in all of this, and does this have the potential to be a more explosive situation?
Whether we like it or not, there is an indication based on watching the video that the white people that were around the officer weren't talked to. They weren't pushed away. They weren't told to get on the ground. They weren't put in handcuffs. The only individuals that the McKinney police were doing that to were those that were African American. McKinney police have got to get this under control before tomorrow. At this point in America, in policing, there's too much out there right now with Baltimore, Ferguson. They got to get out in front of this and make sure that the citizens, even outside of the city of McKinney, understand that they're going to do the right thing and take care of action, and this was not racially motivated.
All right. Okay, Pete, thank you so much for your time, and I know we will continue to stay on this story through tomorrow. To see the entire video, you can go to our website, fox4news.com.
All right, Prina?
Yes.
All right, so I wanted to play the audio clip so we didn't have to read an article as far as what it was about. I think everyone pretty much, if you haven't heard anything about it, I think you know what it's about. What is your take on the audio clips and what you yourself have found out about this situation?
Well, of course, the video that I saw for my own eyes was appalling. Yes, the Texas pool party was chaos, as well as many other acts that the police have done among our other African Americans that have, suffered abuse and death at the hands of white officers. Yes, it is saddening and heart-wrenching and, sickening. But, I know many of our African Americans and even true believers of the Most High are wondering, why now in this day and age, are African Americans being targeted for the heightened level of police brutality over the past several years, and we have to remember, that we are in great suffering because we broke the covenant of the Most High Yah. Even though we have had great leaders out there that have fought for, racism to be, and, racism has been in low incidence over the time, and, with great leaders such as, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson, L. Sharpton, and Black Panther list.
I wouldn't put Jesse Jackson and L. Sharpton as great leaders.
Yeah, well,
they started a problem.
Yeah, I'm saying among what African Americans believed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they are great leaders because we are, we know what they have done, but I'm saying for many African Americans that have looked to them as great leaders. So let me put quote unquote on that. They have believed that they have, paved the way to aid and deliver the so-called African Americans, out of their calamity. However, many of us, even true believers of the Most High have been bamboozled into believing, that they have been freed from slavery and injustice, since we have made great strides in America from overcoming our calamities, but this is not true. We are now seeing an outcry again, among our people because we're in Jacob's trouble. So all these things have heightened against us with the police brutality, is becoming, full circle and heightened. But, we have to remember that, the African American, the so-called African American, we are chosen, and we have been brought to America not to receive justice, not to get equality. We are under the Most High punishment. In Genesis 15:13, Yah told Abram, know for surely you must know that your seed shall be in a strange land that is not theirs, and they shall serve them, and they shall be afflicted for 400 years. Well, our 400 years ain't up, and we still under slavery. We may not be with a slave master and on cotton fields picking cotton, but we are so mentally and still being physically under
oppressed.
Oppressed. Whether you see the strides of our equality, we've had great gains, or we can do things that we couldn't do back in the 60s and in slavery. We still are under Yah's punishment, and we need to know that our forefathers made a covenant with the Most High in Exodus 19:3-8. And slavery, unfortunately, for us, is a biblical prophecy and a judgment placed on the children of Israel. As I read in Genesis 15 and also Deuteronomy 28:6. When Yah said, "You shall bring thee into Egypt," which is synonymous with bondage, again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto you.
68.
Yes. That you shall see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondman and bondwoman, and no man shall buy or save you. And so until we return back to the covenant, and until we know who we are, for those who don't know who they are until they are woken up, but for us that know who we are, until we turn back to the covenant, we will not prosper. We will continue to receive the whipping and the punishment. And, and I like the suggestion of next week crying out, because, we have to return. We have to cry out and make a stand that way. No fighting, no protest, no leader, no Obama, no nobody is going to save us. And the only thing
you can have all the revivals you want to have.
Yes, you can. Right. You can have all the guys. You can have all the marches, the protests, the riots, burn down the city. But until we, as watchmen, continue to go out and fish and hunt for those that the lost sheep, and continue to pray and cry and repent before the Most High, our punishment is a just punishment. And He told us this is what's going to happen to us, and this is why we are receiving what we're receiving. It may not seem fair, but we have to remember what Yah speak of, that's what's going to happen. And until we return, we're going to continue to suffer.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to read something, a couple of scriptures from Deuteronomy 28. What we don't realize is, Ezra tells us that Jacob is, Esau is the end of the world, which is the end of this particular age that we're under, and Jacob is going to be for the world thereafter. So we got next. And do you think they're going to just give that up willingly? Yeah. They're going to fight all the way to the end. So Jacob, who was Isaac's son after Ishmael, but because Ishmael, that's modern day Arab, they're not nation born. His mother Hagar was an Egyptian, so the birthright thus could not go to him, and it went to Isaac. And he said Isaac was his only son. And then Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Esau came out first. Isaac was a younger brother, but Esau sold, and he despised his birthright, and he sold it. And so they still feel that they deserve it.
Yeah, they entitled.
And so the troubles, it may have simmered down a little bit, but now it's turned back up because we are nearing the end of the 400-year mark, the 400 years and the times of the Gentiles being fulfilled. We're near. And so with that being said, those of you who don't know who you are, you might want to check out our first and second show, Sword of the Spirit, audio biblical broadcast, our show number 1 and 2, with who is the so-called African American, and then who are the people propagating themselves off as the children of Israel, who are really Khazars. And but you are the chosen people of the Most High. You're not African American. That's 2 different continents. But we're referring to you as that because so that you know who we're speaking to. But I wanted to read Deuteronomy 28. As my sister said, we made, our forefathers made a covenant with the Most High Yah, in Exodus 19:3 through 8. And they said all that Yah has said we will do. They did not do that. There were stipulations and conditions for keeping the covenant. And he said that if they kept the covenant, that they will be blessed among all nations, and that he will bless them in every way. Okay, but if they failed to keep the commandments, they went to the left or to the right and disobeyed the Most High, then the curses of Deuteronomy 28 will not only come on us, but they will overtake us. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's how we ended up over here, as Prina said, brought over here in slavery. We didn't end up over here in America by choice. Deuteronomy 28 and 29 reads, it says, and I'm reading this because for those of you who are wondering, and those of you who are in truth, stop wondering why. Stop asking, why is this happening? Oh, I can't believe this. Don't count it as a strange thing. He said that this is happening to you. This should not be strange. If you're in truth and you know who we are and why we're over here, then you shouldn't be asking, yes, I get angry. It was heart-wrenching. I was almost in tears watching that officer slam this girl into the ground in her face and had his knee all in her back. And I saw the full audio from beginning to ending, everything that was done. We know what's going on. Okay, if you know what's going on, this should not be a strange thing. And why they're coming after us. Know what times we're in. We are in the end times. And Satan is turned all the way up. So that's why you're seeing a heightened level of oppression. How they're coming at our people. They're not just coming at us physically. They're coming at us spiritually. They're attacking us. They're pushing all kinds of evil agenda. You know, they want to make sure that the black man stays out of the home. They want to make sure that every image that they put on the magazines and the television shows and through the music, they want to make sure that it's negative. They want to show you this is who you are. Don't have dreams or aspiration of being anything else. This is who you are. So this is the reason why we're going to do this show next week. But they're hitting us up everywhere, from the food, the water, where they're putting the fluoride in the water, which dumbs you down. They're hitting, like I said, every facet. There is an agenda that's being pushed. They know time is running out. So, of course, now you're starting to see a lot of the things that happened in the 60s resurface. It seems like every time I turn on the news, that it's another one of my brethren that they don't shot down in the street, or that they're oppressing or afflicting. But the Most High is trying to get our attention. Most of these people who are doing this, they're not covered. They're walking in disobedience. Their parents were walking in disobedience, just as our forefathers were walking in disobedience. And he allowed them to bring us on ships and to afflict us and to hang us and to do whatever they wanted to do to us, because he was no longer with us anymore, because we walked away from him. So he's trying to get our attention. I'm going to read Deuteronomy 20 and 29. It says, Yah shall strike you with madness and with blindness and with astonishment of heart, and you shall grope at noonday as the blind grope in darkness, and you shall not prosper in your ways, and you shall always be oppressed. He said you shall always be oppressed and plundered all the days, and there will be no one to save you. Just as Pretty said, no one is going to save you. Nobody that you look into. Now they looking to Barack Obama. He don't care nothing about you either. You know, all these black leaders, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, they're cool. All they're thinking about is lacing their pockets with money. They know the truth, but they're being paid to keep you blind. Stop looking to men and look unto the Most High Yah. He says nobody. He said you're going to always be oppressed. We're in the land of our captors. Stop looking for justice and equality over here. You're not going to get it. He said no one is going to be able to save you. He said in verse 45, and all these curses shall come on you and shall pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed. For you have not listened to the voice of Yah, your power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded you. Verse 46, and they shall be on you for a sign. A sign is something that you can mark, something to identify. He said they're going to be on you for a sign and for a wonder on your seed forever. So this is how you're going to be able to identify the true seed, the true blood descendants of Jacob, the true children of Israel, based off of the signs. These curses of Deuteronomy 28, no one but us fit all these curses. He said it's going to be a sign to identify your seed forever. Verse 47, why? Because you did not serve Yah, your power, with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. And you shall serve your enemies. So since you didn't want to serve me, he said, you're going to serve your enemies. He said, Yah is going to send you, he said, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in lack of all things. And he shall put an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you. When we came over here, that's what we came over with, a yoke of iron around our neck. Verse 49, Yah shall raise a nation against you from afar, from the far end of the earth, as the eagles fly. What nation brought us over here. We were brought over to the U.S., okay? The nation, the symbol of that nation is the eagle. Okay, this is a prophecy of who was going to come and get us. He said, a nation from the far end of the earth, as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue you will not understand. Verse 50, a nation fierce of face, who will not regard, and I want you to listen to this, who will not regard the person of age, nor show favor to the young. Are they showing favor to our young? Look what they did to that young 15-year-old girl. Look what they did to Trayvon Martin. Look what they did to Mike Brown. Look what they have done to, it's so many, I can't even remember. It seems like in the past 2 years, it's been like every month somebody, I can't even remember all of them. They're not showing favor to our young. This is prophecy. Verse 58, if you do not take heed, meaning if you do not listen to do all the words of this Torah, of the law, written in this book, to fear this glorious and fearful name, Yah, your power, and Yah shall scatter you among all people from one end of the earth even to the other, and you shall serve other gods there, the gods of wood and stone. What are the gods of wood and stone? Christianity and Islam. Those are the two largest religions right now. Those are where most of our people are, either in Christianity or Islam. He said, you're going to serve their gods there. He said, which you have not known. We didn't know nothing about no Jesus. That's not his name. We didn't know nothing about no what's his name? What's the Islam name that they worship, that they honor? Allah. What is it? Allah. We didn't know nothing about no Allah and Muhammad. We didn't know nothing about that. He said these are going to be gods that you have not known, nor your forefathers. He says among these nations, listen to this. He said, and among these nations, you shall find no ease. Okay? He said, you're not going to find any ease. They're not going to let up on you. Are they letting up on us? No, they got their foot on our neck, just like that man had his knee in that girl's back. He says, nor shall the sole of your foot have rest, but Yah shall give you there. While you there, he going to give you a trembling of heart, a failing of eyes, a sorrow of mind. When I looked and I've been seeing what's been going on with our people, it's given me a failing of eyes. I have become very sorrowful and grievous in my mind and in my heart. Verse 66, and your life shall be in doubt before you, and you shall fear day and night and shall have no assurance of your life. This is what's going on right now. Our people don't have, our life is hanging in doubt. Every time we walk out this house, our life is hanging in doubt. Everybody got their hands up. They don't know what to do. Now I got to teach my son, and we got to teach our children what to do if you come, in contact with a police officer, because they might shoot you. Our life is constantly in doubt. He said you're going to be fearful day and night. You're not going to have no assurance of your life. He says in the morning, you're going to say, oh, I wish it was evening. And in the evening, you're going to be saying, oh, I wish it was morning. He says, for the fear of your heart, which you fear, and for the sight of your eyes, which you shall see. So this is what's going on with us. Your history, the Bible is your history. Stop going to, what is it, the History Network? What is the History Channel? Black History Month not going to tell you. You're not going to find it in the books because they're not going to teach you the truth of who you are. They want to keep you dumbfounded. So next week's show, we want to open up our brothers' eyes to the conditions in which they are. You know, our people love, they always looking for a sign, as Scripture says. You know, they love being in ignorance. And that's why you say if you want to keep a black man down and keep him ignorant, what? Put it in a book. Pick up the Bible and start reading. Do you have any final things that you want to say on this, Prina, before I get started?
You know, I just wanted to, just say to our brothers and sisters out there that, the Most High only loved the nation of Israel. He loved us so much that, he told us, for thou art a set-apart people unto Yah, thy power. Yah, thy power have chosen thee to be special people unto him and love him above people that were upon the face of the earth. So he loved us above all the people of the face of the earth. That was Deuteronomy 7:6. He loves those that he loved, he chastised, as a father chastises his son. So we have to remember that this punishment is just as if we were chastising our own kids to return and to do what we ask them to do. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and then those who are not of the nation, if they take hold to the covenant, he will love them as well, and he will. But the covenant was made only with the nation of Israel. The blessings, the promises were made unto us, okay? But if you are not of the nation of Israel and you take hold to the covenant and you are obedient, you can be saved. Because we don't want people to think that, okay, if you're not of the nation of Israel, you can't be saved, but he can't love you. He can love you, and he will love you. If he said, I love those who love me, because there are people in the nation of Israel that Yah does not love because they don't love him. And love is keeping his commandments, okay? It's not just saying, okay, I love you, and then you going and doing the opposite of his word every day and living in unrepentant sin. If you love him, you keep his sayings, you keep his commandments. That's how you show him. That's a biblical definition of love, is keeping his commandments. So if you're saying you love him, but you're being disobedient, even if you are of the nation of Israel, you will not receive any better treatment. You're going to receive the same wrath as everyone else. So I just wanted to make that clarification so people won't be thinking that we're just saying that he only loves us, because he does not just only love us. The blessings and the promises and the rights go to only the nation of Israel, because only us, of all the nations, as you said, whom he has known. He's only known us. Okay, the covenant that is going to be renewed is going to be renewed with the Israelite and those Israelite strangers that are being grafted back in. Okay, and for those of you who do not know who they're engrafted, when people say he's saving a New Testament Christian, there's no such thing as a New Testament Christian. Who those are being engrafted back into the covenant? Those are Israelite strangers. And the prophecy is in the whole all throughout Hosea. Those people that were a people and then did not become a people because of the disobedience after the northern and the southern kingdom split. After the death of King Solomon, the northern kingdom he divorced. So I'm not going to go all off into that. If you want to see that video, which is very thorough, it's a 3-part series. It's called Who Are the Gentiles, Part 1, 2, and 3. And that channel is The Daughter of Yah. So with that being said, if you have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and get called in. Okay, well, thank you, and I'll you can just mute your phone, and I'll call you back in. All right, today's show is entitled The Practice of Multiplying Wives, but before we do that, I'm going to do a quick recap of last week. Last week's 18th show was entitled As the Days of Noah, and we basically spoke about the Messiah, the Mashiach's warning concerning the same type of activity that will once again creep back up in these end times. And if you missed that show, please check it out. It was a very good show. It was our 18th show called As in the Days of Noah. So today's show, again, is entitled The Practice of Multiplying Wives, Right or Wrong. Many are teaching that the practice of multiplying wives is an ordination or institution of the Most High, but we're going to visit the scriptures today to see what the word says regarding this matter. Now, some say it's a sin to have more than one wife, and then others argue that Yah allow our biblical forefathers to have multiple wives. So, it's not wrong to continue in this practice in this land. Nevertheless, was the practice, and this is the question, was the practice of multiple wives the original plan and will of the Most High? Or is it a tradition of men that the Most High allowed or tolerated under certain circumstances? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the practice of multiplying wives, is it ordained by Yah? Or was it allowed by Yah? Was it an institution, something that was instituted by Yah? or was it tolerated by Yah? And why did the Most High Yah allow men to have multiple wives? Before I even get started with this topic, which is very touchy, I'm going to just give you exactly what the scriptures speak concerning this. I am not giving my personal opinion as far as what I think concerning this issue, because what I think is not important. What's important is what the scriptures say. So with that being said, the Most High did allow it. And some of our forefathers did have more than one wife, and we're going to be visiting those scriptures. And we're going to analyze the purpose and the reason in which the multiple wives were taken, as well as visiting the multiple wives situations that may not have turned out in the best way. In the beginning, what was Yah's original plan for marriage and divorce? I have something that I'm going to be reading that I felt was mind-blowing. I'm going to wait until actually the end of the show to read it. It's going to be my final scripture, and it's going to kind of coincide with what I'm getting ready to read. As far as, was this the Most High's original plan for marriage? Genesis 2:18 reads, "Then the Most High Yah said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him," or a helpmeet for him. And Genesis 2:24 reads, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." And Ephesians 5:31 reads the same thing, which says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." In regards to this being the Most High's original plan for marriage and divorce, I'm going to say, no, I do not believe, as according to Scripture, that this was his, and you'll see by the end of the show why I'm saying this, not based off of whether I agree with it or not, and I'm not even going to give my opinion on if I agree with it or not, because I don't feel that that's important. However, I do not, according to Scripture, okay, and as far as what we will be visiting, I do not believe that it was the Most High's original plan. When he brought Eve to Adam, he brought one woman, and he said in Genesis 2:24, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife," singular. I'm very particular about words. If anyone knows anything about me, I visit definitions a lot. But he shall hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Something that I want to, and the Most High kind of brought me when I was putting this lesson together, brought something to my attention. Did the Most High allow multiple wives? Yes, he did. Is having a multiple wife a sin? I can't say that it is a sin, but I know that he did allow it. Wasn't his original plan? No, I do not believe that. And the reason why I say that is because prior to the fall of mankind, people don't understand the consequences of sin. And originally, that was not his initial plan. It was to be a man with a woman, and then the two will become one flesh. Allowances were made in Scripture after the fall of man for things that may not have been originally in his plan, but because of that and the consequences of sin, there were allowances for things that may not have been his will for us. For example, Matthew 19, verses 3 through 8. Divorce was allowed. Yah hates divorce, and he hates especially when you're putting away. When they say putting away means to separate without giving a certificate. If you're putting away someone, and like some of the men who say were being treacherous, they were putting away, they were separating from their wives, which means to put away, but they weren't divorcing them. They did not give them a certificate of divorce. And he who married someone who was put away, meaning separated from but not divorced, then whoever takes her, then they're committing adultery, because adultery is sex with a married woman. So Matthew 19, 3 through 8, Yeshua is speaking to the Pharisees, and they're trying to trip him up, okay? They know what the Torah says, and they're trying to trip him up. We're going to read this quickly because, yes, he did allow. We're going to listen to what the Messiah said. In verse 3, Matthew 19, verse 3, it says, some Pharisees came to Yeshua. They tried to make him say something wrong. They asked him, is it right for a man to divorce his wife for any reason he chooses? And Yeshua answered, surely you have read this in the scriptures. When Yah made the world, he made people male and female. And Yah said, this is why a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two people will become one. So they are no longer two, but one. Yah has joined them together, so no one should separate them. In verse 7, the Pharisees asked, then why did Moses give a command allowing a man to divorce his wife by writing a certificate of divorce? Verse 8, and Yeshua answered, he said to them, because of the hardness of your heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. He says, but from the beginning, it was not so. And I like the way that the easy to read version reads. I'm going to read it. It says, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives because you refused to accept Yah's teaching, but divorce was not allowed in the beginning. So Yeshua, the Pharisees were trying to trip him up. Okay, they were saying, can we divorce our wife for any reasons we choose? Okay, she burned the chicken today. Oh, I'm getting ready to get a divorce. These men wanted to just divorce their wives for any reason. Okay, and he had to make it clear that, yes, in the beginning this was not so. But Moses allowed you to divorce your wife. He says, because of the hardness of your hearts, because you refuse to accept the teaching, because Yah hates divorce, okay? But it's not a sin. I'm not going to sit here and say it is a sin to divorce, because Yah himself divorced the northern tribe. He divorced the northern tribe because they continued to be whores, okay, and committed adultery. And he divorced them. He left the southern tribe. He didn't divorce Judah. He didn't divorce the house of Judah because he had to bring the Mashiach back, okay, so that they could eventually renew the covenant. But divorce was not in his original plan. Before the fall of mankind, before sin entered into the world, when sin entered into the world, people don't understand the consequences of sin and how it changed things. In the beginning, that was not the way that it was supposed to be. It wasn't allowed in the beginning. Same thing with divorce. They said, well, look, we can't divorce our wife, then why did Moses allow us to write a certificate of divorce? And he said, look here, because of your stiff-necked behinds, because you don't want to listen to the teachers, because of the hardness of your heart, he says, that's the only reason why Moses allowed you to divorce your wife. But he wanted to make it clear from the beginning that was not so. That was not the original plan. So we're going to visit because the Most High did make provisions. See, I can't be one-sided. I got to read what thus says Yah, the Most High. The Most High did have laws for taking a second wife. So I can't sit here. Do I personally agree with it? Would I do it? No, I wouldn't do it. But hey, I didn't grow up in that time, in that culture. I've been westernized. I'm over here. The average woman over here is not going to do that. But I'm going to tell you what the scripture says. There are laws. The Most High did make provisions for taking a second wife. So whether you believe it's a sin or not, the Most High did allow it. But the question is, for what purpose? So I'm going to go to Exodus 21 and read verses 10 through 11. Exodus 21, 10 through 11. Verse 10 reads, if a man, say if he take him a wife, so if he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, which is her clothing, and her duty of marriage, meaning her marital rights, shall not diminish. And if he does not do these three things unto her, then she shall go free without money. So that means if a man takes another wife, he has to pay, make sure he takes care of her, her food, her clothing, her marital rights. You had to make sure she was set up, had her own house, clothes, food. You taking care of her in every way. Deuteronomy 21, verse 15 through 16. If a man has two wives, the one loved and the other unloved. So let's say a man has a wife. He has two wives, okay? One of them he loves and maybe another one he may not love. He says, and both the loved and the unloved have borne him sons. So he has two wives. One of the wives he loves, one he doesn't. And both of them, the scripture says, that they both have given him sons. So he has a son from both. He says, if the firstborn son belongs to the unloved, okay, because in the Hebrew culture, the birthright and the blessing go to the firstborn. See, that's why you saw Jacob and Esau fighting in the womb. He says, if the firstborn son belongs to the unloved, he says, then it shall be in the day he wills what he has to his sons. He cannot make the son of the loved the firstborn before the son of the unloved, who is the firstborn. So this is the right of the firstborn. Let me say this in clear terms to those who may be listening. If a man has two wives and he loves one and doesn't love the other, and both of them give him sons, he cannot give the blessing to the unloved. He can't give the blessing to the one he loves if that one that the child that comes from that wife that he loves is not first. I'm hoping that I'm making myself clear. If the unloved wife gives him a son first, and they're of the same nation, okay, it's not a concubine, because a concubine is a wife of another nation, as in the case of Hagar, okay, with Abraham. But if they're of the nation, both of his wives are of the nation of Israel, and the woman that he does not love, that wife has a son first, the Most High is saying you can't give the son of the wife that you love the birthright. Okay, so the Most High, he made provisions. So that's the reason why I say I can't sit here and say this is a sin. Was this his original plan? I don't believe so. And as we will continue to go on, you will see that, because I have a very revealing document to read that will say otherwise. This was not his plan. Okay, and also if you take on a second wife, you had to pay a dowry, okay, to the father, and you had to ask the father. He had to give permission. He had to give his daughter over to you. This is the reason why today, and we don't realize a lot of the cultures and a lot of the reasons why we do some of the things we do today. Why does your father walk you down? I'll give you away. They got this from the Torah, from the law. The father is the one that gives his daughter away, because he is now giving and entrusting his child that he has loved and cared for and provided and given her food, clothing, raiment, housing, and all those things. He's passing that over to you. And so that father had to be comfortable that you're going to take care of his daughter just as well, if not even better, than he could. And if you can't provide for her, You couldn't pay for her clothing, her food, raiment, and housing, and provide for her in every way. You couldn't have you couldn't have that daughter. It's just plain and simple. And something that I want to make, and you find that law in Exodus 22, verse 16 and 17, where it says, when a man lures a virgin who is not betrothed, betrothed means espoused or engaged. If you sleep with a virgin and she's not engaged and you lie with her, he says, he shall pay her dowry for a wife to himself. So basically, if you go lay with somebody that's not married, you got to make her your wife. But it says Deuteronomy 22, 28, and 29, it says, if a man finds a virgin girl not being betrothed, meaning not engaged, and manipulates her and commits fornication with her, and they be found, then the man lying with her shall give the girl's father 50 pieces of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has humbled her, meaning he slept with her, and he may not put her away all his days. Okay, so let me get back to this, because the foolishness that I'm seeing that's going on in Israel, I want to address this before we go into Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Solomon, and David. We're going to go through those marriages and see why they did take second wives and what happened. But there's a lot of foolishness that's going on. A lot of Israelite brethren are running that game on women who are unlearned, that do not read and do not know or understand the scriptures. I have heard of stories of brethren, Hebrew Israelite brethren, marrying and taking on extra wives, and they're not even taking care of their first wife, or they're not even working. Okay, first of all, that's out of order. The wives are working. I've heard stories that I know of where the wives are working, they have their own job or their own businesses, they're working, and the man is talking about, oh, well, I'm teaching the word of Yah, so that's my job. Negro, please. You are supposed to be working. Any woman who is that you have taken as a wife, the Most High says that if you take in Exodus 21, verse 10 and 11, he says if he take him another wife, he has to pay for her food, her clothing, and her duty of marriage, meaning her marital rights. He says they shall not diminish. That woman is not supposed to be taking care of you, clothing you, feeding you, and you're sitting around doing nothing. I know a story where this is actually going on right now, where the women are taking care of the men. That is outside of the Most High's order, number one. If you cannot take care of your first wife, why? And most of us can't even take care. Like I said, most of us in this day and time, it's hard. Most of us can't even barely take care of the first wife that we have, let alone now you want to go add another wife. And many of our men are doing it, not for the same reasons that we're going to see with Abraham and especially with Jacob. Okay, they're doing it for lustful reasons, because they're lusting. That's their reason for taking on a second wife, because they see a woman and they think that she looks good. So it's like, oh, I want me another wife. And they want to enter into a covenant. And a lot of them are entering into covenants with these women secretly, so no one would know. Okay. Or they're telling these women, oh, well, we had sex, so we're married now, which is another lie. So if a man cannot provide for that second wife, that means you got to give her the same things. You can't provide a house for her. You can't take care of her. You can't pay for her food, her clothing. Then you are out of order if you have more than one wife and you can't take care of her. Many of these men are entering into these covenants with these women and taking on more than one wife, and they can't take care of any of them. You have to be able to provide for them, the Most High says. He says, and if you don't, she can go free without money. She could just walk away from the situation. She's not bound. The Most High is not going to bound her to be in a situation and be married to somebody that is not providing for her needs. That is not the order. And many of you who may be listening to this, if this is you, shame on you because you're out of order. So let's go into the first example, Abraham, our forefather Abraham. If you could go with me to the scriptures, Genesis chapter 15, we're going to read verses 1 through 6. All right. Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. Now, in this, Yah is telling Abraham, and I'm just paraphrasing, he's telling Abraham he's going to bless him. And Abram at this time, because he's not Abraham yet, but Abram at this time is saying, okay, how is this going to be when I don't have, a son of inheritance in my house? And Yah basically tells him that he is going to be blessed, and he's going to bless him. And he tells him to look up at the heavens and count the stars. He says, if you are able to count them, he says, so shall your seed be. So, and he says, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Let's go to Genesis chapter 16. Genesis chapter 16, we're going to read verses 1 through 9. Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 through 9. Abraham is married to Sarah. All right, verse 1. And Sarah, Abram's wife, did not bear to him, and to her belonged a female slave. So it begins with stating that Sarah was barren, meaning she couldn't have children, okay? And she had a female slave, it continues on, an Egyptian, and her name was Hagar, okay? In verse 2. And Sarah said to Abram, see now, Yah has kept me from bearing. Go in now to my maidservant, perhaps I may be built up from her. So right here, we're seeing Sarah, okay, the wife of Abraham, not Abraham, is saying, I'm barren, meaning I cannot have children. He says, I have a maidservant. So he says, you know what, maybe the nation can be built up from her. And what happened next? And it says, and Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. He listened to his wife. When people are trying to use, Abraham had another wife. Okay, was this his decision? This was not his decision. This was his wife's decision. And another thing, you can't take, a husband can't take on another wife without permission from the wife, the first wife. You can't just go and just bring somebody home, come on here, this is our new addition to our family. You can't do that. You have to get permission from her because your body is not your own. Remember that, as well as her body is not her own. So the reason why Abram took on another wife, it wasn't because he wanted to. And this was Sarah's decision for him to build the nation through Hagar. Abram listened, it says, to the voice of Sarah. Verse 3, and Sarah, Abram's wife, took her slave girl, Hagar, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. So, again, this is Sarah that is suggesting to Abraham to take Hagar, the Egyptian slave, to be his wife. And Abram listened. And it says, and after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, verse 4, and he went into Hagar, meaning he slept with Hagar, and she conceived, okay? And she saw that she had conceived her mistress and was despised in her eyes. So now, Abraham slept with Hagar. Hagar had a child, okay? And Sarah was angry about it, okay? We see some jealousy rising up. Hagar see that she is now despised in the eyes of Sarah, okay? Verse 5, and Sarah said to Abram, my injury be upon you. I gave my slave girl into your bosom, and she saw that she had conceived, and I was despised in her eyes. Let Yah judge between me and you. But Abram said to Sarah, see, your slave girl is in your hand. do to her what is good in your eyes. And Sarah dealt harshly with her. So now Sarah is being mean, okay? She's upset. Even though this was her idea for Abraham to go in unto her and to marry her, okay, because she wanted to be able to give him children because she was barren and could not give him a child. But this was not Abraham's idea. He didn't take another wife because he saw somebody that looked hot and he was lusting. Like a lot of these men, they got this fantasy where they want to have 2 and 3 wives because they want to be in these, they're having sex with 2 and 3 wives at one time in these orgies. And a lot of times these men is lust, straight up lust, and they're not providing for them, and they're mistreating them. And the only reason why they marry them is for reasons of lust. That is not the reason why you take on another wife. And again, our forefather Abraham did not even desire or want this. This was something that his wife, the idea that she put in his mind to do, and he went along with it. But it says again, after Hagar had a son who was Ishmael, okay, because she gave birth to the modern day Arab, okay. And so Sarah was upset, and it says that she dealt harshly with Hagar, and she fled from her face. So now Hagar is running off because of how she's being treated now. Verse 7, and the messenger of Yah found her by a well of water in the wilderness, by the well in which the way of Shur. And the Most High said, Hagar, Sarah's slave girl, where did you come from, and where do you go now? And she said, I am fleeing from the face of my mistress, Sarah. And the messenger of Yah, and those of you who don't know who the messenger of Yah, you might want to check out my lesson, who is Yeshua. But the messenger of Yah said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. So the Most High, the messenger of Yah, is saying, okay, return to your mistress, submit yourself, because you're the slave, you're supposed to obey, so you need to go back. Okay, and I'm going to stop there with that story. The point I wanted to make for those of you who are trying to use Abraham, this was not his desire. Okay, now a point that I do want to make from this, the 12 tribes came through the 2 wives, so I cannot speak against it because Rachel. Well, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to keep. Let me just go a little bit. Let me go in a little bit more. I'm not going to speak against it because the nation of Israel is here because of who the 12 tribes came through. So let me finish and go in. Let's go to Isaac. Now, from what I saw, and if I'm wrong, someone can correct me because I don't know everything and I'm still growing as you all are. But from what I saw, there was no mention whatsoever of any wife for Isaac other than Rebecca. But again, if I'm wrong, someone, can correct me in love. But I didn't see any mention of another wife or a concubine. I know that Isaac entreated the Most High for his wife because she too was barren, and the Most High eventually blessed him, and Rebecca conceived, and Isaac and Rebecca gave birth to Jacob and Esau, and from Jacob, we know, came the 12 tribes of Israel. And so now we're getting ready to go to Jacob. Let's go to Genesis 29, and we're going to start with verse 13. If you can go to Genesis chapter 29, we're going to start with verse 13. All right. Verse 13. And it happened when Laban heard the report of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him. And he took him to his house, and he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, truly, you are my bone and my flesh. And he lived with him a month of days. And Laban said to Jacob, you are not my brother. and you should serve me for nothing. He said, are you not my brother? Meaning, are you not my brother? He says, should you serve me for nothing? He says, tell me, what shall be your wages? And Laban had 2 daughters, okay? So we see Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Okay, so Laban had 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. Leah was the oldest one, okay? And the eyes of Leah were weak, and Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. So when, in verse 17, when it says the eyes of Leah were weak, this means that Leah wasn't attractive. Okay, Leah wasn't that great looking. She didn't look that hot, basically, that's what that's saying. But then it says Rachel was beautiful of form, meaning she had a beautiful body and a beautiful appearance. I mean, she was beautiful from top to bottom. All right? And verse 18, it says, and Jacob loved Rachel. So Jacob loved Rachel, the younger one, who was the one that was the most beautiful. That's who Jacob loved, and said, he says, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Okay, so Laban had 2 daughters, Leah, the older, Rachel, the oldest. Jacob ended up loving Rachel, which was a more beautiful one, and he told her father, Laban, he said, I will serve you for 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. So he didn't want the oldest daughter. He didn't want Leah. He wanted Rachel, and he told him, look, I'll work for you for 7 years for Rachel. Verse 19, and Laban said, it is better for me to give her to you than to give her to another man. So he said, okay, live with me. So it's better for her to be with you than somebody else. So, okay, you can live with me. You work with me for these 7 years, and then you can have her. Let's go and see what happens. Verse 21. And Jacob said to Laban, give my wife, for my days are completed. So now Jacob had been working for Laban. They fast forwarded. In verse 21, we see now that Jacob had been working for Laban for 7 years. He said, my days are completed. Now he says, okay, give me my wife. And he says, and let me go into her. So he's like, okay, I want to sleep with her. Let me have her. I want to have her now. Verse 22. And Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. So now they're getting ready to have a feast. Okay? And it happened in the evening. He took his daughter Leah. Now listen very carefully. In verse 23, and it happened in the evening. He took his daughter Leah and brought her to him. And he went into her. So now the Laban didn't bring Rachel to Jacob, the one that he had worked for 7 years. In the evening time, it says that Laban brought Leah, the one that he didn't want. That's who he brought. Verse 24. And Laban gave to her Zilpah, his slave girl, to his daughter Leah as a slave. And it happened in the morning, behold, she was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what have you done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? And why have you tricked me? And Laban said, it is not done this way in our place to give the younger before the firstborn. So let me break down what just happened. Leah and Rachel are the 2 daughters of Laban. Jacob loved Rachel, the more beautiful one, and he agreed that he would work for Laban for 7 years so that he could wife his daughter Rachel, the more beautiful one. He fulfilled his obligations. Jacob fulfilled his obligations, okay? And at the end of his obligations, he said, okay, now that I've done my part, now it's time for you to hold to your end of the agreement and give me Rachel as my wife so that I can sleep with her. And they had a feast. At the end of that feast, in the evening time, Rachel wasn't the one that he thought he was sleeping with. Remember what we just got finished reading in the Torah when I first began, where it says that if a man betroth a virgin, meaning if you sleep with her, okay, that the man lie with her, if you humble her, then she has to become your wife now. Okay, we just got finished reading that in Exodus 22. So this is the situation that's going on. So he's like, okay, well, why did you trick me? He thought he slept with Rachel, and he come to find out that it's Leah, the one he didn't want. So he's like, what have you done to me? Why did you trick me? And he tells him, well, it's not in our culture to give the younger before the firstborn. Remember, it's the firstborn that gets the right. So he said, okay. He says, verse 27, fulfill the week of this one, and we will also give you this other one for the service which you will serve me yet another 7 years. So now Laban is telling him, if you want, you stuck with Rachel. I mean, you stuck with Leah, okay? But if you want Rachel, he said, I'll give you Rachel, but you're going to have to work for me another 7 years. So that's 14 years. Okay, because right here, it says here, in verse 28, it says Jacob did so. And he fulfilled the week of this one, and Laban gave to him his daughter Rachel for a wife. So Jacob had to love Rachel to work 14 years to be able to take her as his wife. Remember, the father is the one that gives them away. Okay? You had to have permission from the father. So he worked 14 years for Rachel, okay? And Laban gave his slave girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel, to her for a slave girl, verse 30. And he also went in to Rachel, so he finally gets to sleep with Rachel, make love to his wife. And he also loved Rachel more than Leah. So right here it says that he loved Rachel more than Leah. Remember when we just got finished reading the law about if a man has two wives and he loves one more than the other, the one that's unloved, he can't give the blessing to, if that unloved wife has a child first, he can't give the blessing to the younger first. So we kind of see how the Most High, he made provisions for these type of situations, and these precepts are lining up perfectly with what we're reading. But so he went in to Rachel, but it clearly says that he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served him yet, what it says is another 7 years. And Yah saw that Leah was hated. So Yah had compassion on Leah, okay? She was the first wife, but Leah was hated because he never wanted to marry her. He never wanted to marry her. The point I'm trying to make right now, and I'm going to stop here, is when people are trying to use Abraham as an example, Abraham didn't enter into having more than one wife because he wanted to, or he was lusting after somebody. It was his wife's idea. It wasn't his idea. Look what came from it. Jealousy, heartache, strife, division. Same thing with Jacob. Jacob worked 14 years so that he can have Rachel, the one he initially wanted. Who did he say he wanted? He didn't ask for Leah. Okay, he was tricked into marrying her. He didn't want her. He didn't have two wives because he wanted two wives. He had two wives because he was tricked into having two wives, and he loved Rachel and wanted Rachel that much that he was willing to just allow Leah to remain. But he was still going to work those 7 years to get Rachel. And what happened out of that? He said, the scripture said Leah was hated. He hated Leah. That's why it says the Most High had compassion on Leah. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and continue, because how did Jacob get the second wife? It was through trickery. It wasn't of his own accord. Let's go and let's continue reading. So Yah saw that Leah was hated, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So we see that Rachel was barren, okay? The one that Jacob loved the most was barren, meaning she could have children, but Yah opened up the womb of Leah, the one that was hated. Verse 32, and Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely Yah has looked on my affliction, For now, he says, my husband will love me. So poor thing. Leah, like, well, maybe my husband will love me now since I'm the only one that can give him give him a child. Verse 33. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, surely Yah has heard that I am hated and has given this one to me also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bore a son. And she said, now this time my husband will be joined to me because I have borne him 3 sons. So she so his name was Levi. Okay? And she conceived again. So Leah is fertile. Okay? She conceived again and bore a son. And she said, this time I will praise Yah. So she called his name Judah. And then she ceased from bearing. Judah. Okay? So then he was the 4th. Our Messiah comes from the tribe of Judah. The so-called African American comes from the tribe of Judah. So the reason why I'm just speaking what the scriptures say, that's why I really can't speak against it. I know it was not his original plan, as you will see in a moment, but he allowed it. And through both of these women, Rachel and Leah, came the 12 tribes. And the first wife, even though she wasn't the one that was loved the most, came through Judah. Who came through Judah? The Messiah, Yeshua. And so does the so-called African American. We are also the ones that are not loved the most. We're the ones that's the most hated. Are you getting this? I'm hoping that I'm making a connection here. But through those that are sometimes hated the Most High will take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it around for his good. So I can't speak out against it for that very reason, because we wouldn't be here. Our Messiah wouldn't be here. He came through that. So I can't speak out against it. But I have some, according to scripture, that was not his will. In the beginning, it was not his original plan. But because sin came into the world, some things shifted around a little bit. He had made allowances for things such as divorce. He hates divorce. It was not in his original plan, but the Messiah told the Pharisees, Moses allowed you to do it because of the hardness of your heart, because you refused to take heed to the teachings. So it was for a purpose. In the case of Rachel and Leah with our forefather Jacob. But again, that wasn't Jacob's initial plan. He wanted Rachel. He never wanted to marry Leah. He would have been married to Rachel. Okay, so let's go into, so we've done Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then again, from those situations, nothing came from it but jealousy, trickery, heartache, lust, strife, and division. And because of this reason, we're going to read the laws for the kings, because the Most High had laws for those who would be kings. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 17, and we're going to read verses 14 through 19. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 14 through 19. Verses 14 reads, When thou art come unto the land which the Most High thy Father giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me like all the other nations that are round about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Most High thy Father shall choose. One from among thy brethren thou shalt set king over thee. You may not set a stranger of another nation, which is not thy brother. So the Most High is giving a command. And see, this is another thing. We were never supposed to have anybody over us. The other nations were not supposed to be ruling over us like they are today. But because we kept we didn't keep the covenant, now the nations are ruling us with an iron fist. But he said to the king, you don't be going and desiring to have another king over you like the other nations. He says, you're not going to set nobody to rule over you, anybody that's not your brethren. So only those who are brethren from the household should have been rulers or kings over us, because we're going to do the right thing. What did he say also in verse 16? But listen to this. He says, but you shall not multiply horses to yourself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Most High has said unto you, you shall henceforth return no more that way. Listen to verse 17. He says, neither shall you multiply wives to yourself, that your heart will turn away. Neither shall you multiply wives. So he's giving this, and this is a law. As we're going to read when we get to verse 18 and 19, he says, neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. Verse 18. And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom that he shall write him a copy of this law. This is the law. He said, and this is in Deuteronomy. Okay? He says, write him a copy of this law in a book out of which it is before the priest, the Levi. And it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Most High, his Father, to keep all the words of this law, to keep all the words of this law. I'm going to say it again, to keep all the words of this law in these statutes to do them. So if you were going to be a king, he says that you are not to multiply wives to yourself, that your heart be not turned away from him. Because he knows, just as we read in some of the other situations, and as we're going to read in a minute with Solomon and David, what can happen? He didn't want your heart to be turned away. He says, don't multiply wives to yourself. He said, keep the words of this law. He said, this is a law for the kings. Let's read about our last two people before we wrap this up. David. Go to 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're going to read some specific verses there. 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're going to read about our forefather David, a man after Yah's own heart, and what happened. Going to start reading verses 2 through 6. Okay. And it came to pass in the evening that David arose from off his bed and walked onto the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sit and inquired after the woman. So David, he goes out on the roof and then he looks and, hey, there is a gorgeous woman, very beautiful. Okay? He's taken by the beauty of this woman. So David send someone to go inquire after the woman, like, go bring this woman to me. And the one said, and then he said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah, the Hittite? So this woman that David is coveting after, and to covet is to desire after something that is not rightfully yours, okay? Wanting something that does not rightfully belong to you. So David is coveting, okay? Because this woman is not single. She is married to Uriah, okay? Her name is Bathsheba, and she's married. So David is coveting. So let's see what David continues to do in verse 4. And David sends messengers and took her, and she came in unto him. So David sent his messenger to get her. He took her. She came in. He slept with her. Okay, it says here in verse 4, and she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned into her house. So basically, they slept together. Verse 5, and the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. So now David's got a situation, okay? This woman this married woman that he was coveting after and wanted so badly, he slept with her. Now she's pregnant. So now David sends his messenger to tell Uriah to come. Now let's skip down to verse 13. I'm just reading the most important part. Verse 13, and when David had called him, he did not eat and drink before him, and he made him drunk. So David made him drunk, got Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, drunk. And at evening, he went out to lie out on his bed with the servants of his master. He went not down to his house, and it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle and retire you from him, that he may be smitten and die. So basically what David has done is he has plotted to have Uriah murdered. He's plotting to have this man murdered so that he can have this woman as his wife. So not only was he coveting, now he is plotted to murder. Okay, and this is someone who David is a man that says it was after the Most High's heart, a man after the Most High's heart. He plotted to murder. He committed adultery, and then because this woman was married and committed murder. So we're going to finish reading. In verse 16, it said, it came to pass when Joab observed the city, and he assigned Uriah in a place where he knew that the most valiant men were. So he knew where the strongest men were. David had Joab put Uriah basically on the forefront, okay, so that it would be guaranteed that he would die in the battle. Verse 17, and the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So we see here Uriah did die, okay. Verse 26, let's skip down to verse 26. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife. Okay? Now David got Uriah out of the way. Now he's going to marry her. And she bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Most High. So Yah was angry with David. Okay, it displeased him. He was not happy with what David did to obtain another wife. Because he said, I would have given you, if you wanted another one, I would have given it to you. But what he did, he went about it the wrong way. You coveted and then committed adultery and murder. 3 commandments all in one. So now judgment has to come. So, going into the next chapter, and we're going to start with verse 9, 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 9. This is David's judgment. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandments of the Most High to do this evil in his sight? So Yah said this was evil. He says, you have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and has taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Verse 10, now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Most High, behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wife from your eyes. So he said, I'm going to take your wives, not your wife, but I'm going to take both of them. I'm going to take your wives from your eyes and give them unto your neighbor. And he is going to lie with your wives in the sight of this son. He says, even though you did it secretly, I'm going to do this thing before all of Israel. So he says, before the son. So I'm going to do, he said, you plotted secretly to get your wives, but what's going to be done here is going to be done openly for all of Israel. This is his punishment. David didn't die, but he was being punished for the sin that he committed. Verse 13, and David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Most High. And Nathan said unto David, the Most High hath put away your sin. You shall not die. Howbeit, because of this deed that you have given great occasion to the enemy of the Most High to blaspheme, he says, the child also that is born unto you will die. Okay? And so it was at that moment that David, 7 days later, at the end of the seventh day, as you go, continue, I'm not going to read the rest, but his son did die that he had with Bathsheba. That child did die, but then she bore him another son, and that son was Solomon. And we're coming into the last one, Solomon, King Solomon. But another point I wanted to make, in 2 Samuel chapter 20, it speaks about the women, the wives that he had, and the concubines that he had. I believe it was his own son, because it was his own son that took his wives. But from that moment, again, what came from this situation is the concubines that he had, he didn't want. These were his wives. He repented of this type of activity. He didn't even want to do it anymore. These women were abandoned. He says up until the day of their death, they lived in widowhood. They were widows. They were without a husband. And so it says, just as David kept the 10 concubines in widowhood, and he had no relationships with them. He took care of them, but he didn't have any kind of relationships with them. Why? Because they had been defiled by his son Absalom. His own son Absalom had defiled them. So I just wanted to make that quick point. But let's go into Solomon, because Solomon is the next son that he had with Bathsheba after they lost the first son, which was the judgment because of what was done. So King Solomon, according to 1 Kings chapter 10, was one of the richest kings, and he held all of the wisdom, and it says all of the earth sought King Solomon for wisdom, and they lent their ear to him because they felt that he had the wisdom that the Most High put in his heart. So he was greater, they say, than all of the kings on the earth for riches and wisdom. Okay, so let's go to 1 Kings chapter 11, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 11. 1 Kings chapter 11, read verses 1 through 11. And King Solomon loved many foreign women, even the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, of the nations which Yah said to the sons of Israel, you shall not go into them, and they shall not go into you. They shall turn aside your heart after their God. So King Solomon, it says, he loved many foreign women, okay, those that were not of the household of Israel. And Yah told us, and he told them, don't go into them, don't allow them to go into you. Do not marry them, because they're going to turn your heart away from me and turn your heart towards serving their God. See, you can't marry someone he says, be ye not unequally yoked. A believer and a non-believer, you can't knowingly marry someone who is an unbeliever or someone who you know does not want to serve the Most High and want to continue to serve other gods, because you're going to constantly be at odds. You're unequally yoked. He's not putting that together. So, but he said that Solomon loved many foreign women. And so Yah says in verse 2, of the nations which Yah said to the sons of Israel, you shall not go into them, and they shall not go into you. They shall turn aside your heart after their gods. Solomon clung to these in love. Verse 3. And it said that he had 700 wives. Now, can you imagine? I mean, a lot of men say one woman will give them a headache. Can you imagine 700? But he was rich. He was the richest of all the kings on the earth. He had 700 wives, princesses, and he had 300 concubines, meaning he had 300 wives that were of another nation. And it said, and his wives turned away his heart. And it happened at that time that Solomon was old. His wives turned away his heart after other guys. So we see now here that these women that Solomon married, these wives, they turned their hearts away from him. Did not we just get finished reading the laws for the kings? And Solomon did not follow that law? In the laws for the kings, he said, you shall not multiply wives in Deuteronomy chapter 17 and 17. Neither shall you multiply wives to yourself, for that your heart be not turned away. And this is the exact thing that happened with King Solomon. It says in his old age, it says that the wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with Yah, his power, like the heart of his father David. And Solomon went after Asherah. Okay, our people are going after Asherah and Ishtar. Okay, Easter. You going after her? They go after her now. I'm still going after this guy, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of Yah and did not go fully after Yah like his father David. Verse 7. Then Solomon built a high place for Shema, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the sons of Ammon. And he did for all his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. So he built a high place for them, these pagan gods, and now he's burning incense and sacrificing to the gods of his wives that turned his heart away. And it says in verse 9 that Yah was angry with Solomon, for his heart had bent away or turned away from Yah, the father of Israel, who had appeared to him twice, and had given to him a charge concerning this thing, to not go after other gods. And he did not keep that which Yah commanded. And Yah said to Solomon in verse 11, because this has been done by you, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes that I charged on you, he says, I will surely rent or tear the kingdom from you, and shall give it to your servant. So that's what he took. This is where we see the split of the southern and the northern kingdom after the death of King Solomon, because he took it away. So as we see here, nothing good came from him having all these wives. Look what happened. Look what happened. Solomon died serving other gods, the gods of the women that turned his heart away from him. See, the Most High said it was a law in Deuteronomy 17 and 17 that if you're a king, do not multiply wives. He said, make this copy of the law, so that you make sure that you take heed to it. And that wasn't what was done. Look what happened from having these multiple wives. The majority of the situations that I have read, from the having more than one wife, you see nothing but jealousy, strife, trickery, heartache, lust, division, and even a possible look. We don't know what happened with King Solomon and his salvation. The kingdom was taken away from him. He went from being the wisest, as wise as he was, and had all these wives. It had to have been greed. Who needs 700 wives? Look what ultimately happened from that. So let's go. I want to read this scripture here, because a lot of people in Isaiah 4:1, they use this scripture. In that day, 7 women will grab hold to one man verse. They use that to say, okay, that's what he's instituting in the end days, multiple marriages. That's not what this is saying. In Isaiah 4:1, it says, in that day, they're talking about Jacob's trouble. In that day, 7 women will take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread. We will wear our own apparel, meaning we'll wear our own clothes. only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. The precept to that is coming in 2nd Esdras, chapter 16, verses 31 through 34. It says, in those days, 3 or 4 shall be left by those who search their houses with the sword. The earth shall be left desolate, and its fields shall be plowed up, and its roads and all its paths shall bring forth thorns, because no sheep will go along them. Virgins shall mourn because they have no bridegroom. Women shall mourn because they have no husband. Their daughters shall mourn because they have no help. Their bridegroom shall be killed in war, and their husband shall perish because of the famine. So these women want a covering. They don't have anybody to protect them. And the fact that, listen to what it said. They said in that day, during Jacob's trouble, because of the famine, it said these women are going to take hold to one man, and they don't care how many wives they have. They said, just take this reproach. They said, look, we'll eat our own bread. We'll wear our own apparel. You don't got to take care of us. Just let us have your name. Why are they saying, why are these women coming to this man and saying, we'll eat our own bread. We'll make our own clothes? Because they know the law of taking a second wife. This is the precept from Exodus 21, 10 through 11 that I read for you in the beginning. It says, if a man takes another wife, he has to provide her food, her clothing, and the duty of marriage. He says, he shall not diminish. These women know what the law is. They know Torah. That's why they saying, look here. Look, just give me your name. Just marry me. I don't care. You don't got to take care of me. You don't have to pay for my food. He said, we'll eat our own bread. We'll wear our own apparel. We'll take care of ourselves. We'll worry about the clothing. You don't have to give us the food and the clothing. I'll do that on my own. Just give me your name, because the times are going to be, and we are in them, but it's going to get a lot worse. And during that time, a lot of women that are without husbands, without protection, without covering, they like, hey, I don't care how many wives you have. Can I just take your name? I'll take care of myself. You don't have to provide for me. They're saying this because they know the law of taking a second wife. People when you study and start lining up precepts. Precepts are intended to govern and to direct your thinking and your actions. These precepts are, when you are reading something and it does not line up with other precepts and other verses, scriptural verses, know that your thinking is off. Isaiah 4:1, the precept to that is 2nd Esdras 16, 31 through 34, as well as Exodus 21, 10 and 11. That's why when you read in Isaiah 4:1, that these women are saying, look, 7 women taking hold of one man, like, we don't care. We'll eat our own bread. We'll make our own clothes. Where did they get that from? They got it from Exodus 21, the law. Finally, Paul's message, because we're wrapping up here, Paul's message in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, he talks about marriage being a snare, and not that it's not a sin to marry, but he understands that when you're married, you're going to care for the husband is going to care for his spouse, and the wife is going to care for the husband. You're not going to be as fully devoted as someone who is single that is doing the work of Yah, because you don't have like a wife. You got to care for your husband, and you have children. You care for your children. You're caring for your husband. You're that virtuous wife. You don't have the same kind of time and commitment that someone who is not bound to a husband. And this is the point that he's trying to make, not to say that it's a sin to marry or is anything wrong, but the Most High even called it a snare to have multiple wives. This is why he was saying for the kings, because it will be a distraction to doing Yah's work. And in the case of King Solomon, he was concerned that the king's hearts will be turned away from him if they had too many wives. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 27 and 28 reads, he says, Paul says, are you bound into a wife? He said, if you are, seek not to be loose. He says, but are you loose from a wife? He says, you not tied to a wife. He says, seek not a wife. He says, but if you marry, you haven't sinned. And if you are virgin married, you have not sinned. He says, nevertheless, such have trouble in the flesh. He says, but I spare you. Because, see, marriage is work. Okay, it's not an easy thing. It's a lot of work. So he says, there's trouble in the flesh. He said, but I spare you. Verse 32, he says, but I will have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried cares for the things that belong to the Most High and how he may please the Most High. If you're unmarried, that's where most of your focus is going to be, on the things of the kingdom and how you're going to please the Most High. Verse 33, but he says, but he that is married, if you are married, he said, you care for the things that are of the world and how you may please your wife. Verse 34, there is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares for the things of the Most High, that she may be set apart both in body and in spirit. But she that is married cares for the things of the world and how she may please her husband. Verse 35, and this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, that you may be able to attend to the Most High without distractions. I hope we're getting this. This is why we read the following, okay? Because when you're in positions, holding high positions, and like ministers and deacons, and if you're a king, this is the reason why he has that law about not multiplying wives. Paul just tried to explain it. Sometimes Paul's words is hard for people to understand and to unlearn. He say twisted to their own destruction. But Paul is just making a point. You're not going to be able to serve the Most High without distractions once you get married. If you taking on multiple wives, then that's when y'all say, now you're going to have trouble in the flesh. And same thing happened with Solomon. This is why we read him say, the Most High, this is why 1 Titus chapter 6 through 9 reads this. It says, appoint only an elder who is blameless, a husband of one wife, having faithful children, not in accusation of loose behavior or being disobedient. For the overseer must be blameless as a steward of Yah, not self-willed, not prone to anger, nor excessive in the use of wine. You can't be no drunk. You can't be somebody who's easily angered, someone who lacks self-control. You can't be greedy for gain. You know, you must be, he says, hospitable, a lover of good, discreet, set apart, easy, and temperate, meaning easy, temperate. You're not somebody flying off the handle just every little thing. He says, holding fast the doctrine of the faith, that he may be able to both encourage by sound doctrine and to convict those who are proud, because he hates pride. But he says here that if you're going to be an elder, you have to be blameless, and you have to be the husband of one wife. This is kind of supporting what we were reading about the laws of the kings, and also what Paul was trying to say as far as having too many distractions, because the more wives you have, the more issues you're going to have. But then I've heard rappers say more money, more problems. Okay? 1 Timothy 3:12, he says, let deacons be the wife of one husband. Here's another one. If you want to be a deacon, you have to be the husband of one wife, managing your children and your own household. So if you a deacon or a minister or overseer or king in your household in disarray, your kids disobedient, you don't qualify. You need to step down and get your house in order before you come back up here, because you have to be blameless and be a representative. You can't be a representative and your kids all out in the streets, buck wild, and your wife is being disobedient and all out of order, and you got to have order. And he says you have to be the husband, if you're going to be an elder, of a deacon and a king, a husband of one wife. He's making it clearly. This is not to say the Most High said that having a multiple wife is a sin. He allowed it, just like he allowed divorce because of the hardness of their hearts. But that was not his original plan. And we getting ready to read a document that I said I was waiting for the very end to bring in. But again, I want to make a couple points. Prina, you can come in for a second because we're at the end.
Yes.
The average man cannot take care of 2 or more wives. You know, most of us, the average man can't take care of one, barely take care of one wife. We have enough trouble trying to take care of one wife, let alone having 2, okay, or more to take care of. Like I said, many of our brethren are taking wives for lustful reasons. They're operating outside of Torah because they're not taking care of that second wife. Many of the men are not working and living off the women. Again, our forefather Abraham, it was done in righteous reason. This was for nation building, but again, it wasn't Abraham's decision. It was his wife Sarah that asked him to take on his second wife, not Abraham. Jacob was tricked into having a second wife. He didn't want a second wife, neither Abraham or Jacob. His original intention, as I said, was to marry Rachel, not Leah. And today's culture is different. We are commanded to follow, and Romans 13 tells us to be subject to and follow the laws of the land, unless they conflict with the laws of the Most High. Because Paul said in Acts 5, he said, we ought to obey Yah, because they said, we command you to stop teaching in that name. And Paul said we have to rather obey Yah than men. Now, if you're being asked to sin against the Most High, you don't have to submit to that. But we are, if all possible, he says, to live in peace, and we're supposed to follow the laws of the land. We are over here. We're not in our land. The culture in which when that was being done with the multiple wives, Israel were in rulership. They were in charge. They were in their land. We're in the land of our captors, the land of our enemies. And the laws over here does not allow for polygamy. You can't do it over here. So if you do it over here and you get married and try to say, oh, well, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, and how do you think that's going to fly over? Again, many of the laws that were practiced in the days of old were when we were in our land. We're not in our land. So those of you who are out here, you're living over here in America and you're doing this, you are out of order, period. We seem to have forgotten that we are in the land of our captors. Over here, it is not allowed. It breaks the law. It breaks the law. So if you want to end up in jail, then keep doing that. I wanted to end with this last scripture in the Pseudepigrapha. In the Pseudepigrapha, I'm getting ready to read something from chapter 7. It's called the Fragments of a Zadokite Work, which is also known as the Damascus Document. Okay, and this is in the Pseudepigrapha because we have the Apocrypha. They've taken our book out. But in the Pseudepigrapha, it's called the Damascus Document, also known as the Fragments of Zadokite Work. And I'm going to read chapter 7, and the Most High is going to tell you that this was not his original plan. Okay? Chapter 7, and I'm reading verses 1 through 7. The builders of the wall who walk after law, the law it is which talk, of which he said, assuredly they shall talk, are caught by 2, by fornication, in taking 2 wives during their lifetime. I'm going to read that again. Assuredly they shall talk, are caught by 2, by fornication, in taking 2 wives during their lifetime. But the fundamental principle of the creation, male and female, created he them. And they who went into the ark, knowing his family? He said they that went into the ark, 2 and 2 went into the ark. And as to the prince, it is written, he shall not multiply wives unto himself. But David read not in the book of the law that was sealed, which was in the ark. I'm going to read this again. I'm reading in the Pseudepigrapha, chapter 7. This is the Damascus document. Chapter 7, verse 5 reads, he shall not multiply wives unto himself. But David read not in the book of the law that was sealed, which was in the ark. For it was not open in Israel from the day of the death of Eliezer and Joshua and the elders who served Asherah. And it was hidden and was not discovered until Zadok, Z-A-D-O-K, Zadok arose. So it wasn't discovered until Zadok arose. He says, now they glorified the deeds of David, save only the blood of Uriah. So now this document is talking about David didn't know this. It was hidden. He didn't know anything about it. It was sealed. He says, they glorified the deeds of David, save only, he says, the blood of Uriah, and Yah abandoned them to him. So what do you think about this?
Wow, it's powerful.
It says that he shall not multiply wives.
Yeah.
He said the fundamental principle of creation from the beginning, he created them male and female. He says, and they who went into the ark, Noah, 2 and 2 went in. Okay? And he says, it was written that he shall not multiply wives unto himself. He says, David read not in the book of the law that was sealed, which was in the ark. It said it was hidden. It was hidden. And look what happened. He even, and this even mentions Uriah because of what was done with David, covenant after his wife. So this is the reason why I say, because this lines up with all the other things that I've read as far as the laws for the king and the stipulations as far as being an elder or a deacon, how he wants you to have one wife, and even Paul speaking about how it being a distraction if you continue in those things. So what do you think about today's show? And I'm going to go ahead and open up the lines. If anyone have, and please don't be afraid. If you have any questions, I'm putting everyone in the queue. If you have any questions, please do not be afraid. For weeks, we've had people, at the beginning of the shows, we had people will call in, comment, or have questions. Now we kind of have people afraid. Do not be afraid. If you learned something today, if you have any questions, I will try to answer to the best of my ability. But press *6 on your phone now, and you can ask a question, or if you just have a comment about anything, about the discussion that we had earlier today in regards to the officer that was suspended for his conduct, or the lesson itself about the multiple wives. If you learned something today that you didn't learn, just share it, because it's encouraging to us. So if you do have a question or a comment, just press *6 on your phone right now, and we'll bring you in. But what did you think about, just any questions or comments about today's lesson?
Well, I like how you illustrated stories of how, Yah allowed for multiple wives, and you also related to how it drew their hearts away from him as well, and I like that. But just how Yah allow certain things to happen. We may not understand why, but you brought it to clarity, as far as having multiple wives. So I like the way how you illustrated that with biblical stories and references, and especially the one from the what do you call it?
Pseudepigrapha.
Mm-hmm. So I've never heard of that.
Mhm.
I haven't heard of that part. Yeah.
Yeah, when, even with the laws of the kings, he said that this was part of the law. And You know, it's a reason why. I mean, yes, he allowed it. I mean, he hates divorce. He allowed it, but was that part of his original plan before the fall of man? No, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He allowed it. He said, why? Because of the hardness of your heart.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, that wasn't so. Divorce wasn't allowed. You know, so the question when people say, oh, is a sin? David didn't know about it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't part of his original plan, and he made provisions for it because there were laws. Like, okay, if you do, this is not part of my plan, this is not my will, but if you do, then this is what may happen. And what we're seeing going on in Israel today, I'm just saddened at what I'm seeing going on with our men and just the way that they're treating these women. And our men have just dropped the ball, just period. A lot of them not even taking care of their own children. You know, child support, you should not have other nations have to step in and tell you to take care. Our forefathers took care of their children.
Yeah.
Abraham and Jacob, they took care of their children, and they left an inheritance for their children. Nobody, the law didn't have to come in and force them and do child support and make them take care of their children. And they left something. When they passed on, they had something to pass on. They didn't go work for nobody else. They had their own.
That's
and
true.
Our people are not taught that. So everything, like I said, is out of order. And if you have anything else to add, no one has a question today. So I'm going to go ahead and have you end us out with a scripture.
Okay.
Reading. And we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We truly appreciate those who have hung on. Today was a long lesson, but I appreciate everyone who has still remain on the call with us. And please, when this show is taped later on, please share this with our brethren especially because they're confused. They're just confused and they need to hear it. And I didn't come with my opinion. I came with a word.
Okay, I'm reading from 1 Chronicle 29, verses 10 through 13 and verse 18. And David blessed Yah before the eyes of all the congregation. Blessed are you, O Yah, the power of Israel, our Father forever and ever. To you, O Yah, be the greatness and the power and the high esteem and the victory and the majesty. For all in the heavens and the earth belongs to you. O Yah, yours is the kingdom, and you lift up yourself to all as head. And the riches and honor come from before you. And you rule over all. And in your hand is power and might. And in your hand, and it is in your hand to be great and to give strength unto all. And now, our power, we are giving thanks to you and giving praise to your high esteemed name. O Yah, the power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our fathers. Keep this forever for the intent of the thoughts of the heart of your people, and prepare their heart toward you. In Yeshua's name, so be it.
In Yeshua's name. And so do not forget, next Shabbat, please join us. We're going to have a special edition show with entitled The Real Reality of the So-Called African American. And we're going to, I would like to have a national day of prayer for all those who can hear and spread the word that we will all be in prayer. I'm thinking maybe 12 noon that we can all be in prayer, praying for our brethren, praying for the condition of our people, that their eyes will be opened up. 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, that we can all be in prayer for our brethren. And so we look forward to having you join us next week. So we want to say Shabbat Shalom and thank you for joining us. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.